Hello, boys and girls. My name is Darrell Sandeen, and I'm going to read you a story called How Lovely is Christmas. Let's open the book to the first page. The words on this page say, How Lovely is Christmas. Pictures by Janet and Alex D'Amato. Story and lyrics by Arnold Sungard. Music by Alec Wilder.
How lovely is Christmas with boughs in the hall, when bells jingle and friends come to call.
You know, there have been almost 2,000 Christmases since that first one so many years ago. But the one I'm thinking of took place more than 100 years ago in the dark wilderness of western Kentucky. There was this cabin all by itself in a clearing in the woods. Next to the cabin was a garden patch. The patch wasn't nearly big enough because the father had only one axe. He had a wife, though, and a little boy. Young Jethro was the boy's name, and he had a dog named Pepper. Jethro always tried to help as best he could. Sometimes, when his father was resting, young Jethro would borrow his father's axe and try to use it. But it was too heavy. He could hardly swing it. So he used to say to his pa, "I sure wish I had me a magic axe. I'd chop away an acre or two in no time at all. Then maybe we'd have room for a pony and maybe some space for an apple tree." That's what young Jethro dreamed most about, an axe and an apple. "Is that all you want, an axe and an apple?" his pa asked him. "Well," said young Jethro, "I sure got a hankering for something else, but I hate to be asking for things that are hard to get." The thing that young Jethro was really hankering for was a buckskin jacket with fringes on it. Turn the page. Now this cabin was so remote from any kind of a store, and young Jethro and his pa had been so busy trying to clear out that field that nothing much had been done about Christmas. So, along about noon of the day before Christmas, the father said to young Jethro, "Son, you better start to get ready now. We're all going down to the store with a few eggs and some butter and see what we can swap 'em for." But young Jethro, who still hadn't figured out what he was going to give his folks for Christmas, said he didn't think he wanted to come along. The fact is, there was nothing young Jethro liked better than going down to that store. But he also wanted a chance to be alone and work on a surprise. So young Jethro stayed behind, while his ma and pa headed out through the forest. When he was alone, he sat there with Pepper and asked himself, "What am I going to get Ma and Pa for Christmas?" Then suddenly he got an idea. "I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to chop down all them trees, and by the time they get back, there'll be plenty of room for a garden patch and a pasture for a pony and maybe some space for an apple tree." So he grabbed hold of his pa's axe and crossed to the first big tree. But it was just like before. The axe was too big, and young Jethro was too small. Soon his arms were so tired he couldn't swing it at all. And then a few snowflakes began to fall. When it got dark, young Jethro hung a lantern outside the cabin door so his folks could find their way through the forest. Then he put some logs on the fire and sat down to wait. After a while, young Jethro peered out the window to see if his folks were coming back yet. The trees were bent low with the weight of the snow. One of the biggest trees looked like a huge lumberjack with snow on his mackinaw. One of the smaller trees looked like a man with a pack on his back. And one of the trees with some icicles clinging to it looked like a frontiersman in a buckskin jacket. The icicles looked like fringes. Was he dreaming to see such things? And then young Jethro thought he heard a knocking at the door. But when he opened the door, all he could see were a huge pair of boots, so big they blocked up the doorway. He looked up and saw a pair of legs. He looked even higher, and there was a man as tall as the tallest tree. Turn the page. "Who are you?" young Jethro asked.
"Paul Bunyan's my name," the fellow said. "I brought you an axe, a magical axe, just your size."
He handed the axe to young Jethro and said,
"That's truly a magical axe. It'll chop down any tree in 7 strokes. Try it."
Young Jethro took the axe and was just about to chop down some trees when way in the distance he heard somebody singing.
They call me Johnny Appleseed. I've come to plant my seeds indeed. I've come to plant 'em in the ground. They'll blossom soon for miles around.
And sure enough, there outside the cabin stood Johnny Appleseed. He had a pack of apples on his back. He reached into his pack and took out an apple. "Now you save the seeds from this here apple," Johnny told him, "and when spring comes, you plant 'em. They'll grow into the nicest fruit you ever did see." Just then, from outside the cabin, they heard a deep voice calling,
"Hey there! Anybody home?"
"Who is it?" young Jethro asked as he crawled over Paul Bunyan's boot and went outside. Well, there he was, Daniel Boone. And guess what he was holding? A buckskin jacket with fringes on it.
"Hope it fits," he said. "It's a kind of magical shirt. It'll give you courage."
And Daniel Boone was right. It did give him courage. Just like Paul Bunyan had given him strength, and Johnny Appleseed had given him hope. Next thing he knew, it was Christmas morning. Young Jethro woke up to find himself lying on his bed in the loft of the cabin. Couldn't even remember how he got there. He felt his arm to see if he still had on the buckskin jacket. Instead, he felt the flannel nightgown he always wore. He knew then he'd been dreaming, and he tried not to feel disappointed. He got up and climbed down the birch pole ladder. There by the fireplace was a little Christmas tree with some shiny doodads on it. And underneath the tree there were 3 presents, all wrapped in tinselly paper.
"Merry Christmas, son," his ma and pa said to him. "You sure were sleeping sound when we finally got through that snow last night."
But young Jethro hardly heard. He was staring at those 3 presents under the tree. Turn the page.
"How'd you like to open your presents?"
his pa asked him. Young Jethro opened them very slowly. The first was a long green package. It felt like an axe. He tore the paper away. It was an axe. It had a hickory handle, and the blade was gleaming. The second package was smaller and wrapped in blue. It felt like a ball. But when he tore the paper away, he found an apple. It was rosy red. The third package was wrapped in red. And when he opened it, there it was, a buckskin jacket with fringes on it. Young Jethro could hardly speak. He got up and went to his ma and kissed her. Then he kissed his pa, who patted him on the head. "I was going to give you a surprise," young Jethro said. "I was going to clear away the whole field, but your axe was too heavy." His father smiled at him and said,
"You tried, son, and isn't that what counts? Maybe we can do it together now. It shouldn't take us too long with that axe you've got."
By that time, his mother had breakfast ready. They all sat down together. But far in the distance, young Jethro could hear voices singing on the wind.
How lovely is Christmas with boughs in the hall, when bells ringle jingle and friends come to call. How lovely